She's the perfect class rep. Polished, popular, the girl everyone admires. But behind closed doors, she's secretly writing a romance novel online, and the one person who discovers her secret is the school's most dangerous bad boy. Now he's offering to teach her everything her story is missing.
Amelia Aoyagi has a secret life. On the surface, she's the perfect first-year class representative. Polished, popular, mother's a designer, the whole package. But behind closed doors, this girl is hunched over her phone writing an isekai novel under the pen name Amelia. Her story, The Wicked Girl and the Prince with Golden Hair, is sitting at 25th place on a web novel platform, and absolutely no one at school knows about it. A month into high school, and everything's going smoothly. She's made friends, and school life is comfortable. Then she gets a comment notification that stops her cold. A reader called Katabu drops a review saying the story is pure and cute, but feels like something's missing. They want something more stimulating. Amelie stares at her phone with her heart pounding because she has no idea what that word even means in this context. She spends the entire night obsessing over that single comment until she's completely sleep-deprived. The next day, she drags herself to school and asks her teacher if she can rest in the infirmary during self-study period. She plays it off like she studied too hard for a test, and the teacher totally buys it, praising her work ethic. Amelie shuffles down the hall, thinking maybe her inability to write stimulating content is exactly why her rankings have plateaued. She heads to the infirmary, hoping for some quiet and maybe even inspiration. She'd been thinking about trying to write a sensual love scene like something she once glimpsed there, but writing romance turned out to be even harder than writing suspense for her. She sits on the floor, lost in thought, when she notices someone else is already in the room. A dark-haired boy peers over at her from the upper area and casually asks what she's doing there, like he owns the place. This is Shiramizu, the second-year student surrounded by wild rumors at school. People say he has a tattoo, that he's always with a different girl, that he's the textbook bad boy cliché. She panics because she dropped her phone, and the novel-writing app was left wide open on the screen. Shiramizu picks it up and immediately spots the page settings screen with her author account, Amelia, displayed clear as day. Amelie's face goes white as she begs him not to tell anyone. Shiramizu doesn't even flinch. He casually confirms he saw everything like discovering someone's secret hobby is the most normal thing in the world. He tells her she's already popular among second years too, known for being cute and rich. Then he leans in and asks if she's the author, Amelia, as in Amelia. The way he connects the dots so fast makes her stomach drop. He asks if it was fun to secretly watch, referring to whatever she saw in the infirmary that inspired her writing. His eyes narrow with amusement as he admits that doing something like that at school was exciting. Amelia doesn't know whether to be terrified or furious, but that smirk tells her this guy is going to be a problem. A phone clatters to the floor with a loud crack, and a teacher walks in asking if someone's still there. Amelia scrambles to compose herself while Shiramizu smoothly deflects the situation. The teacher tells them to rest up and leaves without suspecting a thing. Amelia's face is burning red as the moment passes. Shiramizu mentions he actually started reading her novel and says he's getting into the main character. He finds himself cheering for them, all while lying there looking completely unbothered. Amelie's brain short-circuits because this delinquent-looking upperclassman is casually telling her he's becoming a fan. She quickly tells him not to judge the whole story from just one page, her pride as a writer flaring up despite the panic. She grabs his arm and says he can't possibly understand the full scope from reading so little. He just looks at her calmly and says, "Okay," which somehow feels more unnerving than if he'd argued. He asks bluntly if it's a romance novel, and she reluctantly confirms it. He reads a passage and delivers the most devastating critique. It's boring, aimed at children, and the characters only hold hands. Amelia feels each word land like a critical hit, her composure crumbling on the inside. He tells her what she's missing is physical intensity, kisses and beyond. Amelia has no idea what stimulating even means in this context, and her confusion is painfully genuine. She stayed up all night agonizing over that reader comment and still couldn't crack it. Now this guy is spelling it out for her in the most blunt way possible, and she still doesn't fully get it. Back at the rooftop area, Shiramizu reveals he's already read everything she's published and wants to know when she's updating. Amelia is stunned. This rumor-plagued bad boy devoured her entire isekai novel. She admits she can't write anymore because his comment about what's missing has been stuck in her head. She apologizes and says it's her fault the novel isn't updating. She explains that she got other comments saying the story lacked something. and she's grateful someone finally pointed it out. But she tried to write with more physical intimacy in mind and completely hit a wall. She doesn't understand what happens after a kiss or physical contact in general. Her honesty is so raw that even Shiramizu looks surprised. He asks if she's ever had a boyfriend, noting she seems like she'd be popular enough. She flatly denies it and shuts down his assumption without a hint of self-pity. The conversation drifts into unexpectedly vulnerable territory between two people who barely know each other. She tells him she wants to keep her writing a secret because it's important to her, and she doesn't want it taken lightly. There are people who wouldn't understand, and she can't handle the idea of being hurt over something she cares about this deeply. Her eyes are serious as she holds her phone close to her chest. She admits to herself that she wouldn't actually mind him reading her novel. Something about how absorbed he gets in it doesn't feel threatening. He borrows her phone to finish reading, and when his battery dies, she hands hers over. As he reads, she watches him quietly, and something in her chest shifts in a way she wasn't expecting. Amelie reflects that there are people who say they accept her even outside her formal role, but catches herself and apologizes for letting those weak words slip out. Shiramizu looks at her differently now, not with mischief, but something closer to genuine interest. He tells her he used to think she was perfect, someone without any weakness, but he was wrong. He says discovering she's secretly writing an isekai novel makes him want to encourage her, and the warmth in his voice is startling. Then he drops the line that changes everything. If she wants, he can teach her what happens after holding hands. Amelie's mind goes blank because out of all the people who could have found her secret, it had to be him. Shiramizu reaches out his hand with a grin and tells Amelia there's something much more important than worrying. They need to hurry and go. The sparkle in his eyes makes it clear he's already decided this is happening whether she's ready or not. It's the kind of gesture that would make any girl's heart skip, but Amelia is too busy panicking to appreciate it. Amelia finds herself locked in a room after the door handle breaks off with a loud crack. She tugs at it thinking it's just stuck, but the whole handle comes off in her hands. She sits on the floor clutching the broken piece, telling herself she has to keep her cool even though she's clearly losing it. Some girls spot Shiramizu, whose first name is apparently Haruka, waiting at the school gate and ask if he's expecting someone. He confirms it casually, then checks his phone and sees Amelia hasn't shown up. He glances at her and mentions no one's home today, asking if she wants to come over. Amelia knows her friends are good people, but she also knows from experience that sharing her secret hobby doesn't always end well. She decides she doesn't need to reveal herself unnecessarily and slams her desk with determination. She needs to meet up with Senpai and catch the train. She rushes out, wondering if he'll even show up since maybe he only agreed on a whim. Shiramizu appears, and Amelia is instantly flustered by his face, mentally admitting she lost to his looks before she could even speak. She tries to play it cool, but stumbles over her words, asking him to meet after school at the gate. Her friend interrupts excitedly about scoring a limited edition lipstick, completely unaware of the moment she just shattered. Amelia opens up to Shiramizu about why she keeps her writing secret. Back in middle school, she showed her novel to a close friend, and by the next day, the entire class knew about it. That's why she never told anyone at her new school that she likes writing. Shiramizu listens and then flatly says he wants to come with her, catching her completely off guard since she just said she enjoys going to her special places alone. Shiramizu apologizes for pushing even though she's not interested, but then pauses and admits he's actually very interested. Amelia asks if he's going with friends, and he reveals he's going alone. He booked for 2 people only because it was the minimum required. The waitlist cafe suddenly has an open seat and an obvious candidate to fill it. Amelia doesn't want to be seen as an idiot, so she almost holds back, but a notification pings on her phone and she can't contain herself anymore. She launches into full otaku speed talk mode, explaining that the cafe is a collaboration with a novel that inspired her to write isekai in the first place. It got adapted into a manga and anime. The cafe opened during her exam, so she couldn't go, and today is the last day. Shiramizu sits with Amelia on a bench outside school, and she thanks him. Because of him, she was actually able to write a stimulating scene in her novel. He reflects that while reading her story, he kept thinking there were surely more ways to describe a kiss. Something that builds more frustration and desire. He describes wanting the reader to feel that tension of wondering what happens next. Amelia realizes that if Shiramizu keeps being around her, she'll be able to write an even more amazing novel. She looks at him and tells him she's counting on him from now on. She reintroduces herself in her own mind. Her name is Aoyagi Amelia. She has a secret she hasn't told anyone, and that secret is writing an isekai romance novel. Shiramizu admits that he doesn't have anything he's truly passionate about, nothing he gives his all for, But when he looks at Amelia, it's fun. Watching someone pour their heart into something he can't relate to is entertaining to him. He lies back on the infirmary bed and asks her to let him help again if she doesn't mind. Amelia goes looking for Shiramizu at the infirmary, but he's not there, so she guesses he might be on the roof since the weather's nice. She crashes through the curtain with a thud and blurts out that if she wants to write stimulating content, this kind of unexpected situation would make great novel material. She didn't even need to hide. The words just tumbled out before she could think. Shiramizu tells her he wants to stay with her, and the closeness makes her feel like her brain is melting. When his breath touches her skin, everything goes warm and hazy. She snaps back to reality, telling herself now is not the time for her brain to short-circuit. Amelia comes back to the infirmary the next day and finds Shiramizu already sleeping on the bed. She asks if he wants to sleep together, meaning literally nap, and calls his name, but he doesn't respond. He suddenly reveals he was faking sleep the whole time, saying he woke up to the sound of her footsteps, and casually mentions he noticed she updated her novel. Amelia tells him that yesterday he touched her while he was half asleep, and after the shock of it, the words just came out naturally. She was able to write something completely different from her usual style. She thanks him, then immediately thinks about how weird it is to thank someone for that kind of physical contact. Shiramizu eventually remembers what happened the day before, and Amelia asks if he's okay. He apologizes and says he was still asleep when it happened. The spots where Senpai touched her are still lingering in her mind, and she can barely process what she's feeling. Both of them sit side by side on the infirmary floor, and the novel text appears on screen. Amelia has written a scene where Josetta feels Edward's lips on her neck, describing the warmth and the shiver that follows. The words she could never find before are now flowing out of her because she finally experienced what her characters were supposed to feel. Amelia feels hot all over as she types furiously on her phone, channeling every sensation from that encounter into her novel. The world trembles under the vibrations of her heart, and her fingers can't keep up with the flood of words. She's writing in a fever, back pressed against the wall, Shiramizu sitting nearby while she pours it all onto the screen. Shiramizu wakes up slowly, blinking, and Amelia's right there watching him, way too close. He licks his lips sleepily, and she practically jumps out of her skin. He apologizes for still being half asleep and asks if she's okay, but the damage is already done. Every spot he touched is still burning in her memory. Shiramizu says he came to the infirmary to rest, but then fell asleep immediately, completely unbothered by the chaos he just caused. A ladybug crawls across a leaf outside the window, while Amelia sits beside him, noticing the tiny insect disappearing into his clothes. The chapter ends on this quiet, absurd little moment. Two people sharing a strange intimacy that neither of them has fully named yet. Amelia loses track of Shiramizu and ends up wandering into an unfamiliar part of town as it gets dark. A stranger approaches her, asking if she's alone, and tries to lure her to a club, offering a newbie discount. She's fumbling for a way out when Shiramizu's voice cuts through the noise. He calls her name, and she's instantly relieved. She spots Shiramizu walking with a woman down a busy street, and her stomach drops. The rumors flash through her mind. He often hangs around these areas and receives money from women. She blurts out that she just remembered she has something to do and bolts before he can say anything. Amelia rambles nervously to Shiramizu about her novel, describing a scene where the characters escape into an inner garden at night before falling asleep. She catches herself talking too much and apologizes, but he tells her not to. He leans in close and says he really likes it when she speaks with so much passion. She launches into describing everything she loves about isekai romance. The dramatic first meeting, overcoming unrequited love, finally expressing feelings in a romantic way. She gushes about beautiful dresses at castle balls and being invited to dance, her eyes sparkling as she loses herself in the fantasy. This is Amelia at her most unguarded, and it's magnetic. Shiramizu asks her what she likes, and she's caught off guard because he usually dodges personal topics. He says his own favorite thing is sleeping, which isn't exactly exciting, and Amelia asks why he likes isekai novels so much. She admits that while reading, she realized she was completely absorbed in the world. She shows him her notebook full of ideas, writing things down whenever they come to mind, sometimes on her phone too. By the time she realizes it, her notes are already overflowing. Shiramizu looks at her and quietly says he can tell how much she loves novels, and Amelia whispers his title, Senpai, with a new kind of warmth. Amelia gets so invested in thinking about her novel that she zones out completely while walking next to Shiramizu. She snaps back when he asks what's wrong, and she apologizes for spacing out. She reflects that she could never really figure out the opposite sex, and was maybe subconsciously avoiding expressing it in her writing. Her notebook is full of problems like boring love scenes and lacking kiss descriptions. Shiramizu points out that her novel has tons of detailed descriptions about Josetta, but barely anything about Edward. He suggests that if she wrote more about his appearance, it would stimulate the reader's imagination even further. Amelia wonders if she asked him directly whether he'd give her an honest answer about how to portray a male character. She spots Shiramizu at school with a girl clinging to him, and her brain short-circuits trying to process what she's seeing. She thinks about how words like magical or demonic would describe someone like senpai. But then she remembers the rumors from middle school, that he hangs around busy streets and receives money from women. A teacher catches Shiramizu and scolds him for wearing perfume at school. He denies it flatly, saying he's not wearing any and that it's probably just from his morning shower. He casually throws the accusation back at the professor, asking if maybe the teacher is the one making a mistake, and walks away unbothered. The novel update goes live and the notifications start flooding in. Readers are liking it, adding it to their favorites, and the story hits 1,000 likes. The new chapter features Edward running his fingers through Josetta's hair, her heart trembling with sweetness as she can't resist the passionate temptation. Amelia's writing has transformed, and the audience is responding. Shiramizu reads Amelia's latest update on his phone and quotes his own earlier words back to her, about wanting more frustration and desire, about wondering what happens next. She covers her face because hearing those words from him now hits completely differently. Her heart is beating with a mix of anticipation and guilt that she's never felt before. He says this situation between them would take forever to explain if he tried. What's more important than the words is the feeling. Holding hands, hugging, and when that's not enough, kissing. A pink sky at dusk stretches behind him as he speaks, the glow of morning and night blending together. Shiramizu tells her that running as fast as he could to find her and seeing her having fun made the world feel like it was shining. He says it looked just like how she always sees things, and for the first time he understood her perspective. He thanks her for taking him with her, and his smile is the most genuine she's ever seen from him. Amelia excitedly shows him the rare character coaster she got at the cafe and declares the hero is her favorite. Shiramizu suggests they trade, and when she asks if something's wrong, he just says, "Today, only good things happened." He lists finding her and the cafe as the highlights. Casual words that land way harder than he probably intended. They visit the collaboration cafe, and the staff gives them character coasters as gifts for visitors. Amelia slams the table praying she gets her favorite character while Shiramizu asks what she's doing. She fails, and he asks to see what she got, the two of them settling into an easy rhythm that feels more like a date than either will admit. Amelia reflects that until now, she always came to places like this alone and never had anyone take her picture. Shiramizu asks if the photo turned out well and laughs that her bangs are messy. She asks for one more and realizes this is the first time someone has ever photographed her and the first time she's expressing her feelings out loud. Amelia goes full otaku mode at the cafe, photographing every single dish, the themed pancakes, the character-inspired curry, the elaborate parfait. Shiramizu watches her with an amused look and then says he'll take a photo too, since she's only getting shots of the food and never herself. The warmth in his voice catches her completely off guard. Their food arrives and Amelia gasps at the light blue curry, begging Shiramizu to wait while she takes photos before eating. She asks if she can photograph him too, and he shields his face in surprise before letting her. She clicks away frantically, apologizing while he watches her with an expression that says he doesn't mind at all. Amelia tells Shiramizu's female friend not to worry. She's not that kind of friend to senpai and has absolutely no intention of getting involved with their group. She says it with a smile, but there's a wolf-like edge behind her eyes that makes it clear this girl has more fire in her than anyone expected. The declaration catches even herself off guard. The girl explains that Haruka is nice to everyone, kind of like universal love. She shares that when she was at her lowest after a breakup, he stayed with her until morning, comforting her the whole time. She warns Amelia that it's okay to share that kind of person, but to be careful not to get the wrong idea. Amelia insists there's nothing weird about it. She only touched his hand, that's all. But her face flushes, and she wonders if the girl was about to tell her to stay away from Haruka, like in a love story. She sits next to the girl, and quietly thinks that Haruka is a cool guy, processing the conversation with a complicated mix of feelings. Shiramizu asks if Amelia was worried about him, and she admits she was wondering if she was really making a difference since she said she wanted to help. She tells him that when he makes her heart beat, inspiration hits her all at once. She stumbles over the word and calls him her muse, then immediately tries to explain she means someone who inspires her. Her novel has been spotlighted by the app developers with a staff recommendation on the front page praising her love scenes. Shiramizu looks at the screen and says it's impressive, and Amelia is so overwhelmed she tells herself to pull together. She credits him for the achievement, and he simply says, "Good to hear," shining brighter than ever with that quiet pride. Amelia reads her own novel aloud, a line about love being sweeter than any candy and revealing a world more radiant than any flower. She declares that's exactly the kind of love she dreams about writing. But then she remembers what Shiramizu did in the nurse's office from their very first meeting and smashes her pillow, insisting that would never happen to her in a million years. When Shiramizu looks at her with that smile, her heart hurts in a way she can't explain. It feels like she's being pushed from behind, making her want to jump in and run away at the same time, full of excitement. She lies there in bed and finally admits to herself that she knows exactly what that feeling is. He pulls her close and says that when you want to know something but can't, it's hard to get it out of your head. He tells her to think about him a little longer, his voice low and close. The intimacy of the moment is almost unbearable, and Amelie can barely breathe. She notices his body is slim but toned, with just the right amount of muscle, and thinks Edward from the novel must be built like that too. She wants to know more, even more, and the hunger for understanding is no longer just about her writing. A voice calls out to her, and she snaps back from wherever her mind just went. She tells him that rather than believing the rumors about him, she just wants to know the person she sees with her own eyes. The words land with a weight that surprises both of them, and she slams her face into her desk with a frustrated groan. She can't believe she actually said that out loud. What was bothering her wasn't the rumors themselves. It was the feeling that she didn't know anything about who he really is. The senpai she knows is someone who always listens to her stories with enthusiasm, tries to cheer her up when something's wrong, and even goes as far as bringing her a dress. She describes him with such tenderness that it's clear this has gone way past research. He tells her he noticed she seemed distracted the other day when they were talking about the novel, so he wondered if something was bothering her. She realizes the dress was his way of trying to make her feel better. She looks at him and wonders why she ever let those rumors get into her head when the real person is standing right in front of her. Amelia is wearing the dress at school and dancing, and the whole thing feels so surreal she can barely process it. She's at school, secretly wearing a dress, dancing, and it all seems so unreal that it's like being in another world. Shiramizu asks if that's how it feels, and she beams, saying she's happy that she feels better now. She twirls in the dress, noting it's pretty surreal with indoor shoes on, but the fabric is beautiful with sparkling organza lace and slightly puffed sleeves. Shiramizu watches her from a desk and says the fabric is good quality and the lace is cute. Then he calls her name, Aoyagi, in a tone that makes her stop mid-spin. He suggests she try the dress on properly, and she's shocked, her rationality battling with her excitement. She reminds herself they're at school, but he casually says no one ever comes here, so it should be fine. Her rationality loses, and she agrees, stepping behind a curtain to change while he waits outside. Shiramizu holds up the dress in a surprise reveal. His mom works a night shift job, and this was what she wore for an event. Amelia is speechless, staring at this fairy tale gown with its voluminous skirt, sparkling organza lace, and slightly puffed sleeves. She can't believe this boy who supposedly has no passions went out of his way to bring her something this perfect. The feeling hits her. It's like she was told she's not made for Senpai's world. She sits alone in the classroom trying to figure out how Edward's body should look in her novel, debating whether he should be muscular since he's not a knight. A notification pings on her phone, but her mind is somewhere else entirely. Shiramizu's friends call out to him and invite him to leave together, but he turns to Amelia first. She tells him she'll head home on her own, telling herself there's no reason to be depressed since he didn't say anything strange. But despite that logic, she still feels sad watching him walk away with other people. Amelia runs into Shiramizu on a busy street at night, and he grabs her hand, telling her to ignore people who make offers because once you respond, they assume you're interested. She asks why he's there, and he vaguely says it's an errand. He tells her to go home quickly if she has nothing else to do, protective but distant in a way that makes her chest ache. Love is messy, awkward, greedy, a real kind of chaos. Amelie looks Shiramizu in the eyes and tells him she wants him all to herself. The words hang in the air, and he stares back at her with a quiet, "What?" because neither of them expected her to say that out loud. Despite knowing the truth about who he is and who she is, her heart screams past all of it. She wants everything. She wants them both to love each other. Love is sweeter than any candy and reveals a world more radiant than any flower. But it's not only that. She starts to speak again. Me, I. And the weight of what she's about to say fills the entire page. Standing in the rain, Shiramizu reminds her that the first time they met, he said he'd take care of what's important to her. He smiles through the downpour and says he's happy he managed to find it. The rain soaks them both, but neither one moves. He holds up her phone triumphantly. He found it in the dark by figuring that even on silent mode the screen might still light up. Amelia stares at him with wide eyes because this boy just went searching through a storm for her phone without being asked. The glow of the screen in his hand looks almost supernatural against the darkness. It's getting late, and Shiramizu says on the phone that they should call it for today. Amelia tells him the phone is on silent, so it probably won't ring even if he calls it. He turns around in the rain and sees her standing there in a hoodie and calls out, "Senpai?" Amelia says she actually likes typhoons, so the rain doesn't bother her, but he warns she'll catch a cold regardless. He tells her they need to find the phone quickly before he gets sick. His back looks broad and determined as he walks into the storm ahead of her. He holds an umbrella over both of them in the pouring rain, and she calls his name, Senpai. The umbrella drops slightly as they sit together on the ground, both soaked. She starts laughing and he asks if she's okay, genuinely wondering if she's losing her mind. He tells her that knowing her, he figured she'd be out looking for the phone even in this weather. He says he wasn't sure she'd still be here but came anyway. Her eyes fill with tears as she asks why it's always him, Senpai, who shows up when she's in trouble. He smiles under the umbrella and says simply, "Then, let's look together." The image of Amelia's eye reflected with sparkles fills the frame as she processes that this person keeps choosing to be there for her. No grand declaration, no dramatic promise, just a quiet decision to stay. Amelia sits alone in the rain, soaked through, her broken umbrella beside her. She's lost her phone, she's drenched, and above all, she can't stop thinking about Senpai. She told herself she'd be fine on her own, but actually that was never true. Her phone lies somewhere in the wet grass, and she also had photos from the cafe she went to with Senpai saved on it. She slips on the muddy ground and splashes into a puddle. The pain in her body is nothing compared to the ache in her chest. Thunder cracks, and Shiramizu grabs her. She seems distracted, thinking about something else entirely. The scare from the lightning snaps them back, and they realize how close they are. He asks if the rain is going to stop, and whether he can stay here tonight. Amelie remembers his words echoing. He's only nice to people who look like they need someone to be nice to them. She says it's still dangerous outside, but she's thinking of going once the rain stops. She tells him it's okay. She can go by herself, pulling away even though every part of her wants to stay. A heavy rain warning has been issued, and the school announces everyone should go straight home. Amelie buys a raincoat at school and heads out, but a girl asks Shiramizu if her parents are home, so she can come over to his place. Shiramizu notices Amelie didn't read his text, and calls out to her, asking if something happened. Amelie realizes she dropped her phone at the park and panics, asking the teacher if she can go back for it during the storm. The teacher refuses because of the lightning, and she insists she can handle it even if she gets hit. The school bell rings and she trudges out into the downpour knowing every second counts. She finds her phone in the park grass and picks it up, but the emotional weight of everything crashes down on her. It's too painful, not just the rain and the cold, but the feelings she's been carrying. A voice calls out telling her the rain is getting worse and they should head back to school. Her head is cooling down as the rain washes over her, and she decides she doesn't want to listen anymore. Shiramizu appears with a handkerchief and says he has to head to the park for after-school volunteering. He presses the cloth to her face without asking. She asks if the girl from earlier was his girlfriend, and he says she's got it wrong, calling her out for saying "I think" as a cop-out. He presses the handkerchief to his own scratched cheek and tells her he's only nice to people who look like they need someone to be nice to them. He asks if that helped her write a tense moment, turning what just happened into something about her novel. She apologizes and says she was just passing by, but then notices blood on his cheek. She reaches toward his face and his eyes widen. The distance between them suddenly feels like nothing at all.